You may have noticed that in place of a sermon this morning, I'm giving two homilies. Now, if you're not sure what a homily is, perhaps the words of my colleague and mentor, the Reverend Dr. Edward Frost, will help. Edward describes a homily as a mercifully short sermon. There may be some of you, though, who are concerned that you're not getting a full sermon this morning. I want you to assure you that you are getting the equivalent of a full sermon. It simply is a sermon in two-part homily. Oh, that hurt me. Oh. In the course of my life, I have had a love-hate relationship with religion. Thankfully, for the last 25 years, it has been on an upward tick. And now, in the second half of my life, as I have come to understand religion, it is religion that gives my life much meaning and passion. And I just don't mean because I get a paycheck. I will only spend a moment talking about the purpose of religion, because today I want to spend the bulk of my time on the promise of religion, or as I've now thought of as the promises of religion. As a Unitarian Universalist, I have come to see religion as the search for meaning in life. Historically, many have said that meaning comes from outside of humanity, and yet today there are many who say that the meaning in life is the meaning we give it. And yet, even within the last year, I've expanded on that understanding of religion. Religion, it seems, is more than simply finding meaning in life. Religion is also about finding passion for living. And if you have a question about that, I invite you to see our centering quote by Howard Thurman. And so, in pursuit of both meaning and passion, religion, and I love this, religion is an exercise of both the head and the heart. So what is my history with religion that makes me describe it as a love-hate relationship? In my earliest childhood, I accepted the stories as literal truths. And yet what I remember most are the wonderful and warm Sunday school teachers I had in my Methodist church. As an adolescent, though, I made an amazing discovery. I noticed that Christians were raised in Christian families. I noticed that Buddhists were raised in Buddhist families. And I noticed that Muslims were raised in Muslim families. And because we never talked about this, I actually thought I was the first person to ever notice this. More troubling, though, with an omnipotent, omnibenevolent, omnipresent God in charge. As a teenager, I could not understand why innocent babies suffered and died. At the age of 16, I left the church. Religiously, I wandered for 6 years until I found a group of charismatic Christians in Lubbock, Texas. And you'll appreciate this if you know it, if you understand me. It's because they invited me to join their volleyball team. They became and still are some of my closest friends. They didn't try to convert me or change me. But after 3 years at my own initiation, I asked how could I have the assurance they had. They told me that if I accepted Christ as my Savior, all my questions would be answered. I took them up on that offer. I was baptized a second time, this time as an adult, and I began a search for the elusive answers I sought. A critical time for me, though, was when the church's senior pastor, whose safe journey we all prayed for, the entire church prayed for, died in an airplane crash on his return to the church, or return to town. After 4 years, I left the church again, disgruntled with religion a second time. There's been a recurring theme in my struggle with religion. From my Christian upbringing, I have frequently sought to understand Matthew 7:7. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Time and time again, I have been disappointed by that verse as I understood it. I was taught that prayers would be answered. And then later in life, when answers didn't come as I expected them, some told me, "Oh, Jeff, you were praying for the wrong things." Others told me, "Jeff, you prayed the wrong way." So how have I resolved my love-hate relationship with religion? As a Unitarian Universalist, I've come to the conclusion that there are no absolutes in religion. There are no guarantees, and prayer is not a wish list to be filled. A few years ago, I did a sermon on the power of prayer, where I lifted it up as the deepest yearnings of our heart, not a wish list to be filled. It may sound like I've significantly lowered my standard with religion, but I would suggest instead that I have embraced religion in the natural world. I no longer think of the promise of salvation or enlightenment or answered prayer as some final state or some answer, some grand answer. If I did, they would be states of perfection that are not in keeping with my human condition. I instead think of them, salvation, enlightenment, prayer, as states of becoming. In the Christian tradition, I think of salvation as a deepening relationship with the teachings of Jesus. In Buddhism, and the Buddhists will tell you this, the emphasis is not on enlightenment, but instead on the process of awakening. Seek, and ye shall find, speaks to a lifelong endeavor. When I speak of the promise of religion, I like to speak of it in three ways that build on one another. First, as I have already stated, religion is not about absolutes. Religion is not about defining some definitive way or some definitive answer. Religion is about seeking. It is only by searching that we get closer to our heart's desire. And it's okay if our heart's desire changes over time. While finding in any final way will be elusive, it is through searching that we have our best chance of getting closer to what we seek. There is a second aspect to this. We will get out of the religious and spiritual journey what we put into it. We can go merrily along and never do any real searching. We may choose not to answer the hard questions of life, like why innocent children die. And I will maintain, if you haven't grappled with that question, if you haven't struggled with that question, you haven't really done the business of religion. I am convinced, though, that if we struggle with the hard questions with time, but with no guarantees, we move in the direction of greater understanding. There is a third dimension to the search for meaning and passion in life. In the religious and spiritual journey, the road will be rocky at times. We will make mistakes. We will suffer a loss. We will falter and stumble. We will need to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and continue on the journey. The promise of religion is not about living a faultless life. That is one of those unrealizable, unreasonable absolutes. Whether it is our relationship with those who irritate us to no end, or being kind to telemarketers who call during the dinner hour, or learning to love ourselves, or simply being more compassionate, we will make mistakes. We will falter, and we will need to pick ourselves up again and again and again. Despite falling 1,000 times, the religious and spiritual journey calls us to try again and again. I can think of no more meaningful commitment than to, without judgment of ourselves or others, pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and try again. I said earlier that the time of prayer or meditation would be later in the service. It will also be in the form of a song, the song that we sang as our opening hymn. But we will add one additional line, and Scott Dobler will explain this to us. Again, I invite you to use this song as a time of prayer or meditation, and I ask that we remain seated.
I would be in good company. This hymn is taken from the text of a poem that was written by the Islamic mystic Sufi. And another line in the poem is, though I've broken my vows 1,000 times, just like Jeff just said about falling, even though we fall 1,000 times. So this is a little addition besides the round. This little part is, somebody called it a bass line, and it goes like this. Though I've broken my vows 1,000 times, though I've broken my vows 1,000 times, though I've broken my vows 1,000 times. Okay, you got it. So how are we going to divvy this up? How about the folks in the first 4 rows will sing that, and the folks back there will start the round, and I'll sing with you, and then the back row's there. How would that do? We'll give it a try anyway. So. Oh, and let's everybody do one time through Come, Come, Whoever You Are, and then we'll, let's see, we'll...
Then we break it up at once the first time through.
Okay.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is the caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is the caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, come.
I want to tell you the first time that I ever heard that, I was in the company of 50 Unitarian Universalist ministers, and I wasn't prepared to hear 50 Unitarian Universalist ministers singing, though I was a new minister, though I've broken my vows. I can imagine, my eyes got big. What have I gotten into? Just as life may invite us to try again and again, sometimes we need to reopen a capital campaign, and that is exactly what Emerson is doing today. As many of you will recognize, a sermon on the amount is a title that I have used before, and as I've also said, in my wildest spiritual imagination, Jesus has a wonderful imagination, and he would certainly appreciate my play on words on a sermon on the amount. Not to worry, my words are short in the spirit of a mercifully short homily. 2 weeks ago, the Emerson membership voted overwhelmingly to reopen the capital campaign. We did this after we learned that the site development and the building renovation will cost $300,000 more than the original estimates. We will bridge that gap by asking the congregation to increase their capital campaign pledges, and we will also borrow more than we originally intended. but we will also be staying below a conservative 20% debt service ratio. There's a lot of good news regarding our decision to reopen the capital campaign. The first and foremost important news is that the congregation made this decision by a vote of 88%, knowing that it would mean digging deeper for each of us. So the congregation is committed. When I looked on the internet for capital campaign strategies, I found a website with the exact answer that we at Emerson are looking for. According to the website, the good news is that we already have the money we need to raise. The only concern, says the website, is that that money is still in your pockets. Here is more really good news. This past week, we asked the top 10 donors if they would increase their pledges by 20 to 25%. And I should tell you that actually we had the capital campaign a year ago and we raised over $500,000. And this amazing group of people, the top 10 donors, we talked to them just last week, they have already pledged an additional $54,250, and we haven't heard from all of them yet. And again, this is in our goal of $100,000 to $150,000. It is now up to the rest of us to pledge the additional funds of this new goal of $100,000 to $150,000. And yet, for me, the best news is the following. Throughout this building process, Emerson has been abundantly clear why we are doing this. We are not building for the sake of building. We are building because we want to make our space accessible to all. I need to tell you that I spoke to a member of Emerson this past week who attends on most Sunday services, on most Sundays. And she sadly told me that, Jeff, she said, walking on the gravel parking lot is more and more painful for me. And I notice she's not here this Sunday, and I don't think she'll be back. That doubled my resolve to get us in temporary space by late next spring, because there she will be able to attend painlessly. And then 7 to 9 months later, we will be back here in our newly renovated building. That is good news. Pains me in the present moment, but it leads something to look forward to. But there is another reason we are in this building. As Unitarian Universalists and members of Emerson in particular, we have a clear sense of vision and mission. We are creating an open-minded, beloved community of radical inclusion and a vision of bringing peace, hope, and healing to Cobb County through our presence here in this county and through our faith in action. I so appreciated the story that Michelle told you just this morning. She told us about the transgendered person who was recently killed. And that is a sad story. But I also believe that Emerson is one of the few places in Cobb County where that story could be told and that sadness could be really, really felt. Emerson's vision and mission is clear. I've stated that we have the money. We just need our members and friends to agree that Emerson is worth investing in by another 20 to 25% or more. I want to mention a comment that we received in our recent our recent Emerson membership survey. The comment was about abundance and scarcity. The commenter said effectively that there are two ways to live in life, and you have to choose one or the other. You can live from a place of scarcity, or you can live from a place of abundance. Living from scarcity means believing that you will never have enough. Living from a place of scarcity says, well, I would give more to others, but only when I have enough for myself. Living from a place of abundance, though, means believing that the universe exudes abundantly and that we, as children of the universe, give out of that abundance. Those who live from a place of abundance give to others first, and then find, and this is the part that I like, after they give to others, then amazingly, and some would even say miraculously, they find that there is more than enough for them, and they've given to others first. What is most interesting to me is that living from a place of abundance or scarcity is not a function of how much money you have. We've all heard the story of the person who dies with all of their money stuffed in their mattress. And we've also heard the story of the widow who gives so generously from her meager possessions. When I think about someone who lived from a place of abundance, it was clearly my dad. His abundance was not just about money. He was generous with his time. He was generous with his words. He was generous in his willingness to help. And he gave unconditionally. He always gave of himself without conditions because he lived from a place of abundance. So I want to speak briefly and conclude by speaking to various groups within this Emerson congregation. I first speak to families with children in our religious education program. I hear again and again how important it is to you and your family to have Emerson as a community and as a spiritual home. I hear again and again that Emerson is a place for children to engage in their own spiritual exploration. I hear again and again that we came for the children and we stay for ourselves. As families with children in our religious education program, I hope that you will be able to increase your pledge to our capital campaign by 20 to 25%. If you don't have children in our program, you are here because you value so clearly all that Emerson is. You have come to freely explore the free marketplace of ideas, and you have come to search out the vastness of spiritual breadth and depth. And you have come seeking to live a life with meaning and passion. I hope that you will be able to increase your pledge to our capital campaign by 20 to 25% or more. Because Emerson is attracting many visitors, there are a number of you who have not had the opportunity to pledge to our capital campaign. If you are new here, or if you were unable to pledge during the previous capital campaign, and if you believe that what we have here is of value, please consider giving to our capital campaign. You will know what amount is right for you. The final group that I wish to speak to is the retirees, or like myself, the near retirees. You have likely done a good job preparing for your retirement. Some of you are living on fixed income, and we fully respect that, and we say thank you for all that you give to Emerson. Others are perhaps living with a tidy sum in an investment portfolio. What I ask you to consider is this. Consider sharing from your wealth and see your hard-earned money put to work in an organization that so clearly represents you and your values. As retirees or near retirees, I believe that giving generously to Emerson provides one of the most immediate, rewarding, and meaningful ways that you can see your money representing you in this community. As retirees or near retirees, I hope that you will increase your pledge to the capital campaign by 20 or 25% or more. And this group, those with money to be invested, I want you to seriously consider that challenge to give more than 25%. I believe your children will understand and appreciate why you made this investment. Emerson is a generous congregation. You give of your money, you give of your time, and you give your goodwill to this beloved community. I close with one final request. Some have said, give until it hurts. I, on the other hand, encourage you to give until it feels right. You will know what that is. May it be so.